In problem 3, you have a company called Export Limited, and this company is also issuing a prospectus to invite applications. They want to issue to sell 5 lakh equity shares of rupees 10 each to the public. Know that in this statement we don't deal with the amount of the shares. What was the face value or the issue price is not relevant in this statement, because we at this point only want to know the number of shares, how many shares each underwriter is going to take. Alright, so this is for your information. Then the issue was fully underwritten. So these are things that you need to read, that you need to highlight in the problem and keep or make a note of. Okay, so now what does it say? The issue was fully underwritten by 4 underwriters. You have K, B, D and M. Okay, and how many or how much did each one take? K agreed to take 2 lakh, B agreed 1 lakh 50, D agreed at 1 lakh and M said 50,000. So that 5 lakh, this full 5 lakh was divided between them as 2 lakh, 1 lakh 50,000, 1 lakh and 50,000. Understood? Yes. So this is what fully underwritten means. Just try totaling this up. You will get 2 lakh plus 3 lakh 50 total, then 4 lakh 50 and 5 lakhs. This will always total up to the total issue of shares which the company has issued to the public. And why does it total up to that amount? Because the issue is fully underwritten. This full equity share issue has been taken up by the underwriters. So this total will always come to the number of shares issued. Alright. Now, like in the previous problem, I told you they are always given differently. Sometimes you are given percentages, sometimes you are given the number of shares. So even in this case, the number of shares instead of percentages or instead of a ratio, the total number of shares taken by each of those underwriters is given to you. Correct? So we are going to calculate the ratios just like we did in the last problem. Right? We took 10, 6, 4 and we calculated the ratio of 5 is to 3 is to 2. Same way in this solution, solution 3, working notes, you may either make a mental note of it or you may actually show the working note and the calculation. So you have K, B, D and M, and their ratios will be decided on how much they have taken as the gross liability. 2 lakh, okay, gross liability ratio becomes very important, like it comes in handy, it becomes very useful when we are doing other calculations like unmarked applications and so on. So 1 lakh 50, write all those amounts, 1 lakh, okay, and 50,000. Like I always said, you can reduce the entire decimal first. So up to 4 decimals are extra over here. Correct? 1, 2, 3 and 4. Again 1, 2, 3, 4. Fine. Now you have to find a common divider for all of these, right? So you have 20. You just see here, you have 20, you have 15, you have 10 and you have 5. Correct? Yes. So for this, the common denominator or the common number that divides all these 4 figures would be 5. Correct? So you have 5, 4 gives you 20, 5 into 3 gives you 15, 5 into 2 gives you 10 and 5, 1, 5. 5 is to 1, 5. Right? So if you divide all of these by 5, this is the amounts, these are the amounts that you are likely to get. Okay, so your ratio, your gross liability ratio, this is called the gross liability ratio, is 4 is to 3 is to 2 is to 1. If all four numbers, that is, after reducing the zeros, if all four numbers can be easily divided by one single number, then you can calculate ratios very easily like this. Okay, 24 is to 3 is to 2 is to 1. So for our record purpose, we are going to need this for calculations later. Let's write this and keep here and then easily use it. 4 is to 3 is to 2 is to 1. Now, marked applications. We have the agreement liability. As per agreement, this much was the liability. Now let's see how much they actually managed to sell, how many applications each one managed to sell. The applications were received for 4,50,000 shares. This again, pay attention. The company sold 5 lakh equity shares or issued 5 lakh equity shares, and out of this people applied only for 4 lakh 50,000 shares. Followed? Now out of this what was received, marked applications were 2 lakh 20, 90, 1 lakh 10 and 10,000. So each person's marked applications always minus from their respective gross liability the way it is given, right. So if K has sold 2,20,000, just highlight this, K they are saying has sold 2,20,000, meaning these many applications came with his stamp on them, right, they were marked. B sold 90,000, D sold 1,10,000 and M sold 10,000. Please do not get confused, okay. This is how much they had agreed to underwrite or take, and this is how much they actually sold. Fine. 2,20,000, 90, 110 and 10. Now let's get the balance after minusing. In the first case, you will notice that the gross liability of K was only 2 lakh, but they, this underwriter managed to sell 2,20,000. So after minusing, you will get a negative balance, right? Now in this case, like I told you, a negative balance is not really a bad thing. It just means that the underwriter has sold more applications, extra, excess or surplus applications than what he had agreed upon. Fine. Next one. This gives you 60,000 minus. Then D also has done a very good job and has sold extra 10,000 applications, while M still has a liability and needs to sell, still has a liability to take over 40,000 applications. Done. So up to here, we know after minusing marked applications, meaning their own applications, what is their surplus and what is their liability. Alright. Now, we also want to know how many of these applications were unmarked. Right? We did the sorting. All the applications came to the company. We sorted them out. We came to know these many were sold by all those underwriters. And now we want to know how many were unmarked applications. Okay. So, second working note for unmarked. Sometimes the problem may mention to you all by itself how many are unmarked, but that's too easy. Better to, you'll most likely get a calculation to do. Fine. So let's see. Total applications received were 4,50,000. Now I got total applications of or for 4,50,000 shares. Is this clear? Fine. Out of this, I removed or sorted out all the marked applications. How many were they? One fellow sold 2,20,000. One fellow sold 90,000. I'm just taking all the totals of marked applications, okay, over here, right, these. So 90 plus 1,10,000, I'll just write it down here, lack of space, and sorry, 10,000 total. Okay, so how much does this give you? Total unmarked applications will come to how much? 4,30,000. That is the total of all of these marked applications will come to 4,30,000. So if total 4,50,000 share applications were received, and out of that 4,30,000 turned out to be marked applications, which means remaining 20,000 only were unmarked. These came directly to the company. Underwriters did not help in selling them. Okay, directly to the company. So 20,000. And what do we do with unmarked applications? Now we need to divide them between all of these four underwriters, sorry, okay. Even if they were directly received by the company, does not matter. We consider that these applications are sold. So you cannot give the liability of those applications to the underwriters. You need to minus it from their liability, okay. So distribute in GLR among all the four. So that is K, B, D and M. How much will it be? Let's see ratios once again. 4:3:2:1. So how much will that be? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 4 by 10. Just because it's the first few problems, I'm showing you all in detail. 4 by 10 of 20,000, then 3 by 10 of 20,000, 2 by 10, and of course 1 by 10 of 20,000. Right? So how much does it give you? Unmarked applications for each one of them. Let's see. In the first case, 8,000. In case of K, 8,000. In case of B, 310 multiplied by 20,000. Don't get confused here. It might look like 11 to you later. Okay, this is 20,000. Okay, and all of this, take the ratio. 8, 6,000, 4,000 and 2,000. Finally, 2,000. This is the unmarked, or these are the unmarked applications that need to be distributed among the underwriters as per gross liability ratio. 8, 6, 4,000 and 2,000. Done? Alright. So now we have deducted the unmarked applications also successfully, and then we have to get what is the remaining liability or surplus. If somebody has a surplus, then we again have to decide what to do with it. Okay. Now after minusing unmarked applications, let's see what we get. I told you before also, this is negative 20,000, and from this you are supposed to less or minus the 8,000. So do not be confused and treat it like a positive figure. When you minus it, technically it becomes a negative figure, right? Now minus into minus is plus, so you will add it, but you will keep the negative sign. So 28,000, we added it, but we are writing the negative sign. Okay, then 60 minus 6,000, you get 54,000. Then 10,000 is a surplus, again it's a negative, right? So from that you have to minus the 4,000. Okay, so 10,000 negative and negative 4,000 you have to add up. Minus into minus plus, this gives you, we keep the negative sign, and negative 14,000. Okay, and the last one positive figure 38,000. So now again this problem is a little different from what we did previously. Instead of one person having a surplus, there are two. Like over here only C had a surplus. So we took his surplus and we distributed among this one A and B in whatever gross profit, gross liability ratio that was left. Correct? If there is a surplus, what we are supposed to do? Distribute both people's surplus between the other two who have a liability. Now, I'll just, for your understanding, I'm going to color code it. This over here is a surplus. Let's put it in green. And this 14,000 again is also a surplus. Fine. Whatever I have put in green is a surplus, meaning they have sold too many shares. So what is to be done with the surplus? Allocation of, I will write which two people have surplus. K and D's surplus. Two people. K and D have a surplus, 28 plus 14. Surplus among which other underwriters? I'll mention the name, among B and M in gross liability ratio of, now how much gross liability ratio are you going to take? Pay attention to this. Over here, this is your first working note for gross liability ratio. Fine. Now, if you calculate gross liability ratio for surplus allocation, fine. Now, what I am trying to say here is, you have four people K, B, D, M, and their ratios are 4:3:2:1. Now, out of these, K has a surplus, D has a surplus. Am I correct? 28 and 14,000. K and D have a surplus. So keep them out of the equation. You want to give their surplus to the other two, that is B and M. Clear? So your new ratio is now 3:1. 4 and 2 are out of the picture because they have a surplus. They will not get any more surplus now. Alright, they are giving theirs to B and M. So the remaining ratio, the new ratio for surplus allocation becomes 3:1. So 3/4 and 1/4. Okay, in the ratio of 3:1. Sorry, it should come here. Yeah. Gross liability ratio of 3:1. Now, how much will you, what is the surplus that you are going to distribute? Allocation of K and D surplus we are saying. So, K has 28,000 surplus, D has 14,000 surplus. The total surplus that we are supposed to distribute is 42,000. Am I right? Okay, when we have only one person with a surplus, we just take that surplus and distribute it. But here we have two. So first add it up, 28,000 plus 14,000. Okay, you get 42,000. Alright. Now 42,000 in 3:1 ratio. Let's see. Third, you may or may not write these working notes. At least one or two working notes are important, those you have to show. But this one, we'll take it like this. So surplus allocation is, what are we saying, 42,000. Yeah, this divided between B and M, the others have a surplus. So 3 by 4 into 42,000 and 1 by 4 into 42,000. Okay, now here how much will you get? Let's calculate and see. So in the first case, 42,000 multiplied by 3 divided by 4, you get 31,500. And in the second case, directly 42,000 divided by 4 you can do, you will get 10,500. Okay, so surpluses of K and B. This is the total surplus of K and D, which we have divided among B and M in whatever ratio was remaining. 3:1 was remaining. So 3 upon 4, 1 upon 4. Fine. So B gets 31,500 and M gets 10,500. Okay. This remaining is going to get nullified. 28,000 positive, 28,000 negative is going to get nullified because their surplus is now gone. It is given to somebody else, right? So this will go out of the picture. Okay, and after we minus, how much are we getting? The first one and the third one will definitely be nil. They are done. They don't have any liability or surplus. Second one will be 22,500 and last will be 27,500. Okay, so this is the amount of liability that each of them are going to incur. Two people don't have to pay anything because they purchased or they sold too many shares. The other two have a liability, 22,500, 27,500. Now just for our, just to cross check, let's see how much this total liability comes to of both 22,500 plus 27,500. It comes to 50,000. Now what exactly is this 50,000? I told you all the companies offered applications for 5 lakh equity shares, meaning their aim was to sell 5 lakh, but they received applications for 4 lakh 50,000. So how much remain unsubscribed? 50,000. Correct, and that 50,000 is now being taken by these two underwriters. The others don't have liability. Okay, so towards the end of the issue, these two underwriters have to take 50,000 in this proportion, 22,500 and 27,500. Okay, so that was a net liability of all individual underwriters when this type of problem is when surplus is given for more than one underwriter. So at least two underwriters have a surplus. You have to add the surplus and then distribute in the remaining gross liability ratio.